I'm about to feed him to the sharks right now. Get him hype right now. Yeah. You know the ground is up. Yeah. Everybody that trains, you know the game. Yeah. So let's get it. Slap it up, bump it and roll. Hey. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. Ain't no better way to better yourself in this game. You're feeling the growth. That's time on the mat. We put in the work. Believe it ain't easy, I know. But we train for the love of the game, the love of the art. Now slap it up, bump it, let's roll.
Welcome to episode 40 of the BJJ Campaign Podcast. My name is Jeff Boone. I'm an A3 blue belt, 2 stripes.
This is Phil Coors, A2 blue belt, 1 stripe.
And I'm Jon Plyler, A3L black belt, 1 stripe.
A3L, folks, that is for he's got very long arms and long legs. Better to trap you with. So, Jon, thanks again for coming on. For those of you who don't know, Jon is Phil and I's professor. He was on episode 5, our first guest on the BJJ Campaign Podcast. So thank you for that.
Yep. Be here.
So, just getting into it, and Phil was talking about his Kimura because he's getting really good at that. And and we were talking about how to get good at technique. And right, you know, everything is just keep training. Yeah, that works. We know that. We get it. But we want shortcuts. That's what we do. And you know, what is your best advice on whenever you're working a particular technique? Something like with Phil with the Kimura, something like me with the triangle that I devoted a lot of time to and got better at from doing that. But aside from that, what are some of your recommendations for if you're training something? And also, what's something that you're trying to get better at now?
Yeah, so, you know, one thing is you should always train with a purpose. So, you know, have something that you're actively chasing, actively working on. So every time you go in to train, every time you go in to roll, obviously, you know, when you're going to a class, you know, everybody's working on whatever is on the curriculum for that day. But, you know, you should also have your own individual goals that you're pursuing. And, you know, whether that's getting better at, you know, escaping from the mount or working on your triangle or whatever it is. And, you know, you already pretty much hit the nail on the head. The real answer is you just got to practice. It's just mat time and it's getting reps. But, you know, try to put that position or, you know, whatever technique that you're working on into as many different situations as you can, as many different training partners as you can. Really try to, you know, dig into it. And, you know, it's not, I'm going to spend a week working on the triangle. And for me, one of the ones that I struggled with early on as a blue belt, I remember my half guard was terrible. Every time I was on the bottom half guard, it was half mount for the other guy, you know. It was just a matter of time before I got my guard smashed and mounted or whatever. And I spent probably a good solid 2 years working that position actively, really, you know, talking to the people that were good at that position, investigating it, learning as much as I could about every aspect of that position. And, you know, when I would start, when I would roll, you know, every roll started from bottom half guard. And it was a lot of getting smashed and a lot of getting beat up until, you know, kind of started to figure it out a little bit. And usually there's a little, you know, it takes investing the time and you'll have a little epiphany. You'll pick up on some little detail or some aspect of it that you never really paid attention to before. And a lot of times those can change the entire position, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's important that everyone realize that too, is that, you know, in order to work a technique, you're going to get your guard passed. You're going to get smashed. You know, whenever I worked for like 4, well, I'm still working on it, probably about 6 months on my triangle with, you know, because it's infinite the number of entries that are with a triangle. Yeah. But whenever I first started doing that, all it was I was allowing someone to pass my guard. That was all I was basically doing for the whole time. Yeah. And guess what? That then made my guard retention and my guard recovery a lot better.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to do that and understand that in the training environment, the mat is a laboratory. You know, that's where you experiment. That's where you try new things. work on things that you're not already good at. You know, the guys that focus on trying to win in the academy, you're already practicing what you're best at. You know, if your only objective is to tap the guy in front of you, that's fine. But, you know, long term, what real result are you getting out of that? You're already practicing what you know how to do well. So take chances, put yourself in the positions that you're not comfortable with, work on the things that you're not already good at. That's how you're going to get good at them. You know, we all tend to naturally gravitate towards the things that we already feel comfortable with and do well. Well, how did you get comfortable with that position? You spent a lot of time on it, and probably because at some point earlier on it made sense to you naturally. You picked up on, you know, some people naturally will gravitate towards a certain technique or a certain position. You know, and that's fine. That's important. Have something to build the rest of your jiu-jitsu game around. But yeah, really dig it apart and see where it fails, because that's the most important part of any technique. It's great when it works, but when it doesn't work, you know, what's your bailout? What's your plan B? Where do you go from there? How does it fail? How is the guy beating the position? You know, and if you're running across the same issue, you know, you're going for the triangle, and every single time the guy's, you know, going for a stacking pass and passing your guard, you know, that's your issue. You know, sometimes that's something that you got to fix. You run into other ones where it's an individual problem, and that's where having a variety of different training partners is good, because they're going to present a different approach to that situation, and they're going to react differently. And you know, sometimes you're going to see something that's completely different from what everybody else is doing, you know, or you can make the move work on everybody else except for this one guy, you know, and that's more of an individual problem that takes a little more time to pick that apart. But yeah, getting the reps in, I always recommend start with the guys that are lower level. If I'm working on a new position, I work it on the white belts, you know, work it on the blue belts, because there's really no, you know, if you screw it up, it's okay. You know, you can recover. Don't start out, and be realistic. You know, guys are working on a new position. You know, if you're a white belt and you're grabbing the brown belt, and I don't know why I can't triangle the guy. Well, because he's a brown belt. You're not supposed to be able to, you know. If you were, then, you know, none of this really makes a whole lot of sense, right? But working on the guys that are smaller than you, working on the guys that are lower level than you, and work your way up. When you can hit the move on all the white belts in the room, then you start going through the blue belts. And when you can get through all the blue belts, go through all the purple belts, you know. When you can do the move on everybody at will, then you know it pretty well.
Yeah, agreed. And John, on that, so I always find it interesting, you know, because right now, just for example, I always try to incorporate whatever that we're doing in the fundamentals class in our roles, but I also have something that I'm working on. Like right now, it's back defense, you know, is making sure that whenever we're doing any rolling, I get in that position, whether it's forced upon me or otherwise, but working on back defense. Mm-hmm. What is something that you're working on right now that because, you know, Phil and I see it, and like whenever we go with you, there's the only way we gain a position is if you allow us to gain a position. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of hard to see that upper level what the things are that you're working on. So that's interesting to me. What is something that you're working on right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because I just left our morning class, and Brent, one of our brown belts, and I were kind of working on this position. You know, this is something that it's not a new position, but just, you know, your focus shifts as you go through. You kind of get away from things and then come back to them. And, you know, I was training with my instructor, Steve Hall, who's our Fight to Win team leader. And, you know, he's been working this arm lock position, you know, kind of off of the open elbow position. And, you know, there's a lot of different transitions that you can get into, arm locks and kimuras and sweeps and things off of this position. And it's one that he was working, I think, pretty extensively in his seminar series that he taught over in England. I was looking at some of the footage of that. And then I just, you know, happened to comment when we were rolling. Is like, you know, I can see he's going after it. And I'm like, yeah, I saw those videos from your seminar, and I know what you're going after. And he kind of laughed, and then he still went after it and took it anyway, you know. So it's like, man, you know, I need to explore that position a little deeper, you know. Not only so that I have a better understanding to apply it, but so that I'm not getting caught with it, as well. So, that's something that I've been playing around with a lot lately.
Was it the one isolation position that Jeremy Orell did in the Toro Cup with?
No, it's a different position. It's more from the guard.
Okay.
But all of those positions are kind of a similar concept. Opening the elbow and controlling the elbow. And gives you a lot of openings to break posture and attack into shoulder locks and arm locks and triangles and sweeps and kind of different things like that. So, and it's a really good way. And actually, Brandon and I were just talking about this concept from the guard of not trying to attack the guy directly, especially a bigger guy, of creating an angle, breaking the posture a little bit, and a really good way to do that is attacking the elbows, either flaring the elbow, opening the elbow, to start creating a break in the posture, break in their structure, off balance, or going the other way when they over defend that of, pushing the elbow in, which is going to create drags and, sit-ups for triangles and back takes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I think that's pretty much the approach I always seem to feel that I have is that troubleshooting approach of, always going to the classes and whatnot, trying to do it as correctly as possible, but then when actually training, seeing this scenario keeps happening and what is the troubleshoot for that, how do you fix this one? And now you're one step further, but I'm running into the same problem all the time here, and that's where I think those little epiphanies come in and stuff. Which...
Yeah, for sure. And it's, I say it all the time is, ask the question. If you're getting caught with a position or you're not able to escape a position, now be realistic. Again, you're a white belt, brown belt's got you in side mount. I can't escape. Well, train. Keep showing up, keep training. That's the answer to that one. You're not going to you're not going to be able to escape. But ask the question. If you're getting caught in a position or submission, and you just keep getting, it's okay to tap, but it's not okay to keep tapping to the same thing and never ask the question. Man, how do I stop this? What are you doing? Let me figure this out. That's how you learn it. And I remember. This is several months ago, but training with Ryan. Ryan's one of our black belts. Very, very. Well, I'm going to say he's big and strong.
Yes, he is. That's all he's got.
Just because that annoys him. But, no, he's very technical. He's very good at Jiu-Jitsu. But I was training with him, and just every single time, passing his half guard, and the same pass over and over and over, and finally one day. He's like, man, you keep passing my guard the same way. Like, what do I need to do to stop this? And it was literally something as simple as just changing a grip. And once he asked the question, he had that epiphany. I didn't pass his guard that way anymore, which is good for him, but it's also good for me because now I got to figure out a new way to get, to solve this puzzle, because it's easy when I can pass your guard the same way. If you don't adapt to it, there's no reason for me to change. I'm going to keep passing your guard 100 times that way until you figure out how to beat it. And once you figure out how to beat it, now I have to, improve my game a little bit and change and adapt. And that's how we both get better.
That's funny. We were just talking about that on Friday. You saying every time you rolled to get back to the same knee shield position, and he would just fix one thing at a time, just over time, and eventually he's kind of improving quite a bit and seeing that. But that's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, and it is funny that half guard position came up because that was just in our newsletter, and that's the half guard position is one that I've been doing since I was a white belt. I don't know why I like that half guard position, but that's such a deep position, and it's like you said, half mount was the beginning of that journey, and now it's a very attacking. You can attack. There's a lot of attacks from that half guard position.
Yeah, for sure.
Very strong position, and that gets me into another topic that we wanted to kind of bring up, and that is positions and techniques for your particular body type, right? For whoever's doing it. I'm a bigger guy. I think that one position that I've always liked from the very beginning was the Kimura. I mean, it's something that I feel like fits my body type and it fits the way that I roll. But give us some other examples of that and what you kind of how to overcome that, and just kind of a general discussion on what you should be looking for, especially whenever you're first starting to develop your game.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing when you're brand new, you know, nothing makes sense. It takes a little while just to kind of get the idea of what we're trying to do, you know. So anything that you can find that you can kind of latch onto early on, that you can kind of wrap your head around, and it kind of feels natural to you, you know. You don't have to look for it. It'll find you, you know. You just show up, go to class, do the moves, and you know, you'll find the things that completely don't make any sense to you at all, and that's okay. Don't disregard them. They'll come back. They'll come back around when you're ready for them. But there's usually something that will kind of click with you, you know, that kind of makes sense. And, you know, that's dig into that and really spend some time with it. And you start exploring that, and then develop the rest of your jiu-jitsu around that position, you know. And a lot of times it is based somewhat on body style. I mean, the classical example is, you know, the triangle. If you're a guy that's short, you know, stocky, short legs, probably not going to be a triangle guy. It doesn't mean you can't have a good triangle and you can't really understand the triangle well. But if you're a person that's a little longer, you know, that has longer limbs, you know, the triangle is going to be a little easier for you to get a hold of. You know, same thing. The things, you know, the shorter guys, stockier guys, the Kimura positions tend to be stronger. A lot of the butterfly guard type of positions, you know, the positions getting in underneath your opponent. But again, it doesn't mean that you can't explore those other positions and be good at them. And, you know, typically what you see is the smaller guys tend to be more guard players naturally, because when we're all training together, you know, we don't really train weight classes in the academy. Everybody trains with everybody, and naturally the smaller guys tend to end up on the bottom more, and out of necessity they develop their guard to a higher level. The bigger guys tend to be more top heavy, more, you know, top players, and you see that play out in competition as well. You know, in the lighter weight classes, it's a race for who can pull guard first. And in the heavier weight classes, the guys, you know, push each other around for 5 minutes. Nobody wants to be on the bottom, you know. It's very typical. I was actually kind of the opposite of that, where, you know, I was, when I started training, I was a good bit bigger than I am now. But, you know, one of the bigger guys in the academy, me and Jeremy Arell, that you guys have had on several times, we came up training together. And we were, you know, two of the bigger guys in there, so we were training partners for each other all the time. But when I was training with the smaller guys, my mentality was, you know, it felt unfair to me to, you know, use my size and my weight against the guys that were a lot smaller. So I would put myself on the bottom, and I would play from the bottom. So I developed my guard game to a much higher level earlier on than I did my top game. And that was actually a little bit of a weakness, you know, in my game that, you know, when I started training with Steve, that, you know, he was pretty quick to point out that, you know, man, you're a big guy. You should be on top and smashing people. You know what I mean? And I was, you know, it had become more comfortable for me to be on the bottom. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just what kind of fits naturally with your body type and your personality, and what kind of resonates and makes sense to you early on, and that will change. I mean, if I look at the things that I do now compared to when I was a blue belt, it's night and day. You know, the things that were my A game, my go-to positions as a blue belt, I rarely do, you know, most of them anymore. You know, I was, you know, pretty heavy into spider guard when I was a blue belt. I really don't like the spider guard. I don't play spider guard very much for a lot of reasons now, but in, you know, some of the positions that I really avoided because I wasn't confident in them. I didn't understand them. I didn't feel comfortable with them. You know, I didn't like, for example, guillotines, head and arm chokes, things that are some of the staple of my, you know, what I do best now, that I just avoided them completely as a blue belt. So it's going to change as you train and progress.
And why do you think that? Why do you think that is? That and those are pretty fundamental movements and positions. Why do you think that is that you avoided those? Is it just something that?
Well, yeah, it's again, it didn't make sense to me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't understand them at the time. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew how to do a guillotine.
Sure.
But, it wasn't something I felt really comfortable with. And it's just because I hadn't invested the time in it,
I'm right there with you on it too, by the way, especially on the guillotine. I mean, we go over it in class. I always pick up a new detail to it, but I'm still not super comfortable.
Yeah, and it's a basic position, but there's a lot of little details that you go beyond that basic level, Mm-hmm. And it just comes down to there's so much in jiu-jitsu. You can't get good at everything right away. Mm-hmm. Pick something that you like that makes sense to you and get good at that, and then the rest of it will follow. And if you're not understanding it right now, again, don't disregard it. It's not, these techniques have been around for a long time for a reason. So it might not be the best position for you for your body type, but you need to understand it, if for nothing else, to understand the mechanics of how it works so that you can learn how to defeat it. But it may be one of those things that, it's not your position now, but it might be 5 years from now if you keep training. And that will just naturally evolve, and sometimes it's picking up one little detail, on a position. I can remember the thing for me that really changed my perspective and my mindset on, in particular, on the head and arm choke, was doing a seminar that I went to years ago. I might have been a blue belt, maybe a purple belt, I don't remember, but with Shaolin, and all we worked on was head and arm chokes, and it was a position at that time that I really, I knew it and kind of knew how to do it, but I really wasn't comfortable with it. And, just from that one seminar, that was the beginning of me starting to really pay attention to that position and develop it and really see how I could use it and start implementing it more, and now it's one of my favorite, positions. So.
Yep, I like that one too. And I want to add to the statement you had earlier, in that whenever you kind of figure out a position that you're good at, I would also say, point out to your partner. I remember whenever I was partnered up with Phil early on, and he did a hip bump sweep. Like, my hip bump sweep is still trash. And he did his first hip bump sweep and was like, boom, got me. I was like, that's your sweep. Mm-hmm. Point it out to your partner, because Phil was really new at that point in time.
Yeah, I remember that. That was weird.
Yeah, Phil was really new at that point in time, and he didn't know. I don't think you knew that was yours, but point it out to your partner, like, man, that you're doing that for the first time and you're doing it really well. That's probably something that you're going to be really good at.
Yeah,
I think that's
important. And that feedback goes both ways. And I can see it in the brand new white belts that have been on the mat a week or 1 or 2 classes, and you can tell the people that to them they're completely confused and lost and they don't understand anything and they think they're terrible, and they are terrible.
Yeah,
but you can see they're supposed to be. It's their first class. Yeah. But you can see the potential, that, man, this person really, if they keep showing up, is going to be good, particularly at this position. This is the first time you've done it, man, keep working on this.
Yeah.
You can, I can see that potential because I've seen a lot of white belts. I've seen a lot of people struggle with this position, and yeah, it's terrible, but you're doing it way better than most people do it early on,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, agreed. And man, it seems like everyone that's coming in, it's so funny, because we got a lot of new people in our academy right now, and I'm lucky enough that I get to pair up with those people on a regular basis, and I think, God, you guys are so much better at learning this than I was when I started. You know what I mean?
I look at the blue belts now, and I'm like, man, the blue belts now are way better than I was when I was a blue belt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And part of that is, it kind of should be that way. There's so much, jiu-jitsu is so much bigger now. There's so much more access to information, and that can be good and bad, but, there's a lot more resources available. And so, I have the same perspective, and part of that is your perspective changes a little bit. I don't know how really accurate that is, but looking back on it now, you think, man, I'll go back and watch an old competition. A few weeks ago I ran across an old competition match from when I was a purple belt, and I'm like, man, I don't even recognize that guy. His jiu-jitsu's terrible. But and hopefully, I mean, we're all still trying to get better at this. It doesn't matter how long you do it. Hopefully, if I look back at a video 10 years from now, it's have the same perspective. Man, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
But you suck a little bit less the longer that you do this. But it's important to keep that perspective that we're still all trying to get this figured out. Nobody really has it down, 100%. And you're, as long as you're on the mat and you're training, you're getting better. But there's always guys out there that are, a step ahead of you, and it's important to have those guys and chase those guys.
Yeah.
To keep getting better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So the next, that kind of dovetails into the next topic we wanted to explore, and that is, there's a lot of people, a couple things. People worry about belts, right? People worry about promotions. People worry about these sort of things. And then there's the other side of that, which is people who get promoted, they're like, oh, that's not good. Mm-hmm. And I remember early on, and it's really stuck with me, in that, and I do implicitly trust your judgment on that sort of thing. That's why it's not up to me when I get promoted. It's up to you, and I have to conversely believe that. Yeah, okay. So I get my blue belt. I'm still no different than I was before.
Yeah.
It's just that now I have a little bit higher standard to live up to, a little bit more to do within the academy, a little bit different approach to learning, maybe taking more on my own and that sort of thing. A couple of things with that, and also just with testing and what you look for in those types of promotions.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the belt's not magic. It doesn't change, overnight because you put on a blue belt. Now you have these, superpowers on the mat. It doesn't unfortunately work that way. You got to grow into every belt, and as you go higher into the belts, that transition is harder. It's a lot of times I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves. That idea of having a target on your back. Most of that is self-imposed.
Agreed.
There's a little bit of that for sure, but people kind of overplay that. But really, what it comes down to, and belt promotions are, they're tricky, and it's something I take very seriously and very personally, every single one of them, because there's an objective standard, but everybody is different. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and what it ultimately comes down to is this promotion going to push that person forward, or is it going to hold them back? That there's a growing in and a breaking in process for every belt, and sometimes people get promoted too quickly and they crumble under that pressure, and it really can be a negative. And kind of the way I look at that is that the worst thing I can do is promote someone who is not ready. If I've got somebody that's on the fence, that's right there on the bubble, my typical mentality is to just hold that person a little bit longer, let them, and it's doing them a favor.
Of course.
It's sometimes hard for some students to see that, but if that's your mindset and the belt is the goal, you're not going to last long term in jiu-jitsu anyway. So if we look at this in the longer term, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're all going to be black belts. The people that are still there, that are people that are still training, you're all going to be black belts. Does, waiting another 6 months for that next promotion really matter in the grand scheme of things? No. And when you get the black belt, you'll wish you had more time at the lower belts, almost every, myself and almost every black belt that, I talk to all has that same perspective that, man, I wish I had more time. And I was, before I got my black belt, I was, there was a group of some of my peers that we all kind of came up together, all brown belts. And really it was my goal among that group to be the last one, to be the last brown belt, I think brown belt is almost the best rank in jiu-jitsu. because you get a lot of the respect and the prestige that goes along with the black belt, but not the pressure. You're still allowed to screw up. You're still allowed to make mistakes as a brown belt. People think when you are a black belt that you know everything, and that's so far from the truth. The black belt is when you start learning jiu-jitsu, really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective, the brown belt, because it kind of seems like no man's land. That brown belt is kind of like, again, you do get the respect, but that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's the best rank,
brown belt.
And it's the brown belt's it's just a preparatory phase for the black belt, The cool thing about being a black belt is once you get to the black belt, there's no, the belts don't matter anymore. You're just training.
Yeah, which is a great thing. And I want to go back to something you said with, making sure they're ready. And that is, and I've seen it a number of times. We've had a lot of people get promoted lately, and it's weird that there is no superpower with the belt. But it's weird that it seems like every time someone gets a promotion, their jiu-jitsu improves dramatically in a short period of time.
It's that little push forward, and that's what if the person gets promoted at the right time, then and that's going to be different for every person.
Sure.
Again, I don't want the promotion to hold you back.
Right.
I want the promotion to push you forward, and that's what it should be. That little bit of extra incentive, a little bit of extra added pressure. Self-imposed or otherwise, is it does most of the time push that person forward to the next level. And because what it is, it's easy to get comfortable. And you see the guys that, and we've had a few guys. We've had guys leave the team because they didn't want to get promoted.
Wow.
We've had guys leave the team because they wanted to get promoted and they weren't. Again, both of those are the wrong mindset, and both of those are not ultimately good for your longevity in jiu-jitsu. It's putting too much stock in the belt. The belts are important, but let your professor worry about the belt. You just show up and train because, whether you get, you show up for the team promotions, and whether you get a new belt or a new stripe or whatever that day, what are you going to do differently? The day before you got promoted, you showed up and got on the mat and trained. The day after, you're going to show up and get on the mat and train, and so, that's what it should be.
Yeah. Have you ever regretted promoting anyone?
No, I don't think. None come to mind that I would say I regret.
Mm-hmm.
I always, it's a very typical thing with a lot of jiu-jitsu academies. It's kind of a known syndrome of the blue belts, especially. People get the blue belt and they leave and they stop training. And I hate to see those guys go. You know what I mean? Not just for the academy, but for them more than anything, because I know what they're missing out on. They haven't been on the mat long enough to have the perspective to even know what they're giving up.
Yeah.
But it's. If everybody made it to black belt, it wouldn't be special, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a long road, and it's not an easy road.
Why do you think blue belt is when that usually happens?
Well, I think there's a lot of different reasons for it. Sometimes I think that that self-imposed pressure can be a contributing factor. Sometimes, if people get promoted too early, that can be a problem because they feel like they can't really hold that belt, and then it's hard to catch up, once somebody's kind of over promoted. I think to speak from my personal experience in our academy, when the academy was very young, the blue belts were the top dogs in the school. There was nobody above them other than myself. We didn't have purple belts and brown belts, and other black belts on the mat. So it's hard for them to see that next step, and it's a tough situation to be in when you're the best guy in the room. It's hard to get better.
That was the question I had for you.
Yeah, and And so, and that's an issue the longer that you train. You know, the longer you train jiu-jitsu, there's less and less people that can really push you, you know, and that's when you're getting better the most, is when you're really getting pushed. And so if you're already at the top of the heap at blue belt, you don't really see the next step, you know. So I think from my experience, you know, most of the blue belts early on in the academy are not training anymore. There's really only one guy, and he's now training at the Charlotte School, Bill, that started with me, got his blue belt under me, and just recently got his brown belt, you know.
Oh, Bill started with you? Okay.
Yeah.
Bill's legal.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is neat, you know.
For sure.
Because it takes a lot of years and a long time to develop brown belts, you know. That's not something that you do in a couple years. So, you know, as the team grows and we have a little bit deeper pool of upper belts, you know, and a good solid core of blue belts, you know, that hopefully most of those guys are going to be in it a little more long term. But, you know, it's always tough anytime a student leaves, you know, at any level, but especially the guys that you've put several years into and invested a lot of your personal time and energy into. You know, they're on the mat with you. You know, we're sweating together, and you know, it's family. So seeing somebody walk away from jiu-jitsu is always tough. But
yeah, I really like that. Tom DeBlas posted something on it. You know, that it breaks his heart when a blue belt leaves.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you said, that time investment that you have.
And I mean, for me, it's more, you know, it's more for them.
Yeah.
Know?
Oh no, agree. Totally agree.
I feel bad for them, you know, and you know, everybody has their own personal reasons, and I have to, you know, kind of keep in mind that my perspective is not the average person's perspective. You know, most people don't think about jiu-jitsu the way that I do, the way that any of the black belts do. You know,
right?
That it's, you know, it is the most important thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, it's just something to do. It's a hobby. It's, you know, they do it for a while, they like it, and they move on to the next thing. You know, and that's okay. You know,
Sure.
Again, if everybody did jiu-jitsu and everybody stuck with it, you know, for the long haul, I guess it wouldn't be that, you know, that special.
Well, and two, jiu-jitsu's hard.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I like it. And another one of the reasons I like it is that it doesn't matter how good you get. You don't feel like you're getting good because there's always somebody out there better.
It's never ending.
It's never ending. And that's what intrigues me about it. That's what...
Yeah, but it is. It's hard. And it's, you know, it's physically demanding. It takes a toll on your body. You know, I always joke around and say, you know, if you train jiu-jitsu and you wake up one day and nothing hurts, you probably died. You know? But, you know, there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of days, you know, it's tough for me to get out of bed in the morning, but, man, it's all worth it, you know, every bit of it. I wouldn't give it up for anything. But, again, my perspective is different, you know, than most people. And the guys that catch the bug, you know, kind of get it.
Yeah.
But it is. It's hard. It's you know, there's a lot of things that are easier, you know, and it's not instant gratification. You know, you don't get good at it quickly. You know, it takes a long time and a lot of sweat and energy. So
Yeah, agreed.
So being the best person in the room and everything we know you've taught us, how do you try to improve?
Man, I gotta, you know, take advantage of the opportunities to train with the guys that are better than me, you know, when I can. And you know, it's with the, you know, the academy keeps me very busy, and especially now running 2 locations keeps me very busy. You know, I still try to make it into you know, train with Steve when I can. You know, that's, you know, he's the most accessible to me, and you know, my direct instructor, and you know, I don't get to see him on the mat as often as I would like to anymore, because both of us are so busy with the various academies, and you know, our schedules kind of pull us in different directions. But you know, I try to take advantage of those opportunities, you know, anytime that they present themselves, and not just him, but anybody, you know, if I have the opportunity to go, go to a seminar, go to train with somebody that, that I respect, that is, high level, that, take advantage of it, You can also, one of the things as you get into the upper belt ranks that's important is being able to train with the white belts and make that productive for you. I'm not just training for that white belt, Realistically, I'm training for me, I'm training to make that white belt eventually a good training partner for me. But, if you train with the right approach and the right mindset, you can still make that, even with a newer student, you can make that beneficial to you. Work on the things that you're working on. Take advantage of that opportunity to do things that you aren't good at, do things that you aren't comfortable with, But yeah, it's tough, It's a problem for the upper belts, It's not a problem. White belt, blue belt, you got plenty of guys that can beat you up, The longer you spend on the mat, there's less and less of those guys. So, man, chase those guys down, take advantage of it, keep a, keep a student mindset, You always got to be a student.
Yeah, and the great part of that is that, especially with the, Jiu-Jitsu's growing so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more people doing it, and the great part is, we got a new purple belt at the academy, and Jeremiah, and everybody's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have more of that, and also, just in addition to that, is if you're traveling and you go to another school that's well established, they're going to have a lot of upper belts as well. Whenever you go to those new schools, don't avoid them. I would flock to them. Now, obviously you have to do it the right way, because some academies are a little bit more strict in the sense that they don't ask upper belts to roll.
Yeah.
A little tip or trick that I always use in that case is I just go sit right beside them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got their protocols, but that's one of it's neat now, because even within our own team now, we have black belts.
Yeah.
We have homegrown black belts. We've got Lee and Charlotte. Brad Hanna up in Asheville. Mm-hmm. Scott Zeman.
Training with him tonight. Training with Brad tonight.
Okay. Nice. We've got Ryan at Denver. So, and I don't know if you noticed, but when we have seminars and team training, team open mats, I'm rolling with the brown belts and the black belts. I'm not rolling with white belts on those days.
Sure.
We just had the network training, the Hoist Gracie network up at Blaine School in Greensboro. Again, it's an opportunity. We had 7, 8 black belts on the mat that day, and I'm grabbing as many of those guys I can and roll with them, and the brown belts as well. So
there was a bunch of brown belts there. There was like 20 brown belts.
But we don't get those opportunities all that often. So when they're there, take advantage of it, and that's where, for me, I got to be a little selfish with my training. It's not that I don't want to roll with you as a white belt, blue belt, but on those days I'm training for me.
Yeah.
So
you have to take that. That's good advice too for anyone out there. So congratulations, on the new academy, Mooresville. I think that's going to be a great success. I know you're very busy. I know that you continually, and this is something that I've always consistently been impressed with, and that is that you're continuously looking at how to improve the schedule. If you're out there and you're kind of adverse to change, man, change is good, especially whenever someone like Jon is looking at the schedule and saying, hey, our team's evolving, we have to evolve with it with regards to our schedule. So something that I always appreciate, I'm very lucky, Phil is very lucky that we train under you. I think it's a privilege, and it's something that we don't take for granted. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that, and it's it is something that this is my whole thing. This is what I do full time. So it's figuring out a way to always try to make it better. Always tweak it. You know, I think what we've got going right now is pretty good, but it can always be better. You know, and it's the same approach that you use to your jiu-jitsu. You know,
Yeah.
Can't ever settle and say, you know, I think I'm good enough. I can stop training now. You know? Yeah, there's always something you can work on. You know, there's always something that we can fix, whether it's in the schedule or you know, our marketing stuff, our student retention, the just general environment, atmosphere of the academy. Yeah, it's always, if you're not moving forward, then you're slipping backwards. You know.
Yeah, agreed. And Jon, just tell us if anyone's interested in training in the Lake Norman area. Mm-hmm. Just tell us how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so Fight to Win Lake Norman. You can find us on all of the social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I think we have a Twitter account. I'm not.
Yeah, that's Twitter.
But
Twitter's kind of going away now a little bit.
Yeah, but the website is the best way. It's FTWLKN. That's as in fighttowinlakenorman.com. That'll take you wherever you want to go. Phone number is 704-966-9364, and our email is info@ftwlkn. If you just search for Fight to Win Lake Norman, again, we have the main location in Denver, and then the new location that we just opened up in Mooresville.
Thank you very much. And Philly, tell the audience how they can help support us.
BJJCampaignPodcast.com, Facebook.com/BJJCampaignPodcast. Shirts and patches available in the store, and the group on Facebook is gaining momentum every day.
Yeah, and that combo pack is fire with the patch and the shirt. Yep. $35, real bargain. So anyway, for those out there listening, if you're not doing something to make yourself better each and every day, get out there and do it. Phil and I choose jiu-jitsu. So does Jon. We hope you do too.
I'm about to feed him to the sharks right now. Get him hype right now. Yeah. You know the ground is up. Yeah. Everybody that trains, you know the game. Yeah. So let's get it. Slap it up, bump it, and roll. Hey. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. Ain't no better way to better yourself in this game. You're feeling the growth. That's time on the mat. We put in the work. Believe it ain't easy, I know. But we train for the love of the game, the love of the art. Now slap it up, bump it, let's roll.